your diet, change your life, change the planet.
She asked the question, what do I do in the winter? Because, especially in Vermont, it's much colder than Connecticut. You need to raise your body temperature. Calories are units of heat energy. So how do you warm your body in the winter? You eat more calories. And that creates more heat in the body. It doesn't matter the temperature of the foods that you're eating. It doesn't matter the inflammatory properties of the foods that you're eating, like ginger or cayenne. Simply more calories creates more heat, because that's what a calorie is.
So how many calories do you do in the summer versus the winter?
It's about the same, only because I train more in the summer than I do in the winter. In the winter, I'm tapering, like from September to mid-November, my training kind of tapers down, and then through the winter I start to taper up again, and by summer I'm in mid-swing. So my training is more intense in the summer, so therefore more calories. In the winter, less training but more calories, so it kind of balances out.
So how many? Roughly thousands of calories.
How many thousands of calories? I eat less than what you're going to hear many people prescribe online, especially if you watch a lot of YouTube videos of raw athletes and whatnot. Because what I have learned and what I've experimented with is that the more nutrient dense a calorie is, the more efficiently and effectively it is utilized. And therefore you need less of them. The more empty or less nutrient dense a calorie is, the more of it just goes to waste. I'll give you a quick analogy. I hear a fan over here for this guy, which I'm not going to ask you to turn off. But there's a fan, which means there's electricity, and there's lights. And I've got a computer and a microphone and a camera, which means that this building has power. But we're not being electrocuted. But yet this building is electrified. I can touch this and not be electrocuted. But if I were to go out to the pole and with my super raw power strength leap up there, grab the line off the pole, yank it down, and just plug it into my mouth, I wouldn't be raw anymore. And it would smell like bacon. That's what happens when you eat an empty calorie. Calories are energy units. So when you eat a refined or empty calorie, you're mainlining energy and you're electrocuting yourself. Give a kid some refined sugar and what happens? Yeah! Don't give your kid sugar before bed because you know the result. Give a kid a piece of fruit. Different story. Same amount of sugar, very different outcome. Because nutrient-dense calories, especially those in fruits and vegetables, not only do they have coding on the wire, but they've got transformer boxes, they've got circuit breakers, they've got conduit running through, there are fuse boxes, there's outlets, there's switches, there's cords with rubber coating on them, there's power adapters, and there's tools. There's microphones, there's laptops, there's cameras, and there's light fixtures. Fruits and vegetables are full of protective mechanisms to protect you from the energy, and they're full of tools to help you use the energy. Without the laptop or the microphone or the lights, it wouldn't matter if this building had electricity. You couldn't use it. You need something to plug into the outlet, something to turn on. So many of the components, these phytonutrients that we are just beginning to learn about, are tools that the body can use to safely and powerfully utilize that energy. But when you eat empty, refined calories, you're not getting those tools, you're just getting the energy. So the body's reaction is, number one, use as much as you can as quickly as possible. So you're like, whoa! Sugar spikes, insulin spikes, not good. The second thing you're going to do is quickly store the rest as fat because it's going to damage you. So quickly, whatever we can't use, store it as fat. Let's neutralize it, because when you store something in a fat cell, it's no longer dangerous to the body. And then the third thing we do is we excrete it. A lot of the refined calories we eat, we're just peeing, the kidneys are just peeing them right out. Because there's only so much glucose or sugar that the kidneys can process at a time. And once you go over that limit, it just ends up in your urine. Which diabetes mellitus, which is diabetes, means sweet urine. That's what the term diabetes mellitus means, sweet urine, because you're peeing out your sugar. Because you're not utilizing it. It's not being taken up. And why is sugar harmful? Sugar, glucose, is kind of a reactive molecule. And it can bind to other things in your bloodstream. And it can bind to the cell walls of your arteries, which is known as your endothelium. And when you go get checked by a doctor to see, your cardiovascular function, are you heart healthy? One of the things they're going to do is look for markers in your blood that tell them how healthy your endothelial cells are, which are the cells that line your arteries. Because they're the ones that become damaged, and that's how the plaques build up. Excess sugar in the blood damages these endothelial cells because it binds with them. And when it binds with them, it turns them into something else, and they don't function properly anymore. The sugar can also bind with proteins in your blood and render them useless, so the body can't use them. It can bind with all kinds of things. So you don't want this massive stream of sugar going into your blood, which is one of the reasons that diabetes kills people, is because there's so much sugar in the blood. It's just binding with all kinds of stuff and causing all kinds of damage. So you want to regulate that sugar. You want to utilize that sugar, and you want to have protective mechanisms in the blood with the sugar so it's not going to harm you. And that's what a nutrient-dense calorie is. So how many calories do I eat? I eat fewer than we've been told, because many of the people in the raw world, they looked at the US RDA, the recommended daily allowance of calories. Someone my weight, size, male, 2,500 calories a day. And they said, well, okay, I will just take that number and I will apply it to a raw diet. So I will eat 2,500 calories of raw food a day, fruits and vegetables. And if I'm an athlete, I'm going to have to bump that up to 3,000, 4,000, 5,000. But those RDAs are based on people consuming lots of refined grains, lots of potatoes, lots of white rice, the staple foods of the 1950s, which is when those RDAs came out. We didn't have the abundance of food that we have now. For instance, oranges. When my mother was in school in the 50s, oranges were hard to find. Bananas were hard to find. You get apples. But many of the foods that we take for granted now did not exist. We didn't have interstates yet. They weren't trucking things around the country. They weren't shipping things around the world. So when those RDAs were made, people were literally eating meat and potatoes and white flour and white rice. So those RDAs are based on these refined starches for the most part. Really dense, starchy foods. So to apply that caloric information to a nutrient-dense diet is really, it's a waste of money and it's a waste of energy. And what ends up happening is you just pee a lot of it out. Because you've got all these protective mechanisms that are regulating the sugar, and the body's like, well, I've already got all the sugar I need. I don't need to store it as fat because it's not going to harm me, so let's just get rid of it. So anybody consuming 4,000 calories of fruit a day has really expensive urine.